Predator Cold War, a feminist text. Hi everyone, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I am Tina. So today is my wrap-up for June 2021. June was a pretty good month for me in terms of reading and for writing. The first two books in my trilogy are going to be off to my editor. Actually, they probably are now from when I filmed this video. And I'm still working on the third one due to a holiday, forgot, Canada Day, and my kid being sick one day. So yeah, anyway. As I said last month, on my birthday, July 8th, I'm going to be doing a cover reveal video where I talk about my space opera, so based on my schedule, that should be this Thursday. Anyway, July is looking to be a really good month for reading for me because I have a lot of really good stuff on my TBR. My second kid is going to daycare, so I have 2 weeks off, because I didn't get that when she was born because she was born 3 weeks early. So I had planned, because you can plan these things, I'd wanted a couple weeks, to kind of just wrap things up in my life and do some things and relax before my baby was born, but no, she came early, so I'm taking that now at the end of July. I'm also going to do stuff for my house that's impossible to do with a 14-month-old, and that's painting my shed, digging out my front yard, painting my kitchen ceiling, basically all that fun stuff. I also have a tattoo book right here. I'm excited. I was supposed to get this like over a year ago, like before I had my second kid, and then I was supposed to then have it back in April, but then our lockdown got extended, all this stuff, so now it's booked for July 23rd. So hopefully by my next wrap up I'll have a nice new tattoo here to show you on my arm. I'm very excited. Anyway, I read 7 books in June. I'm going to talk about 8 though because I bumped one from last month because I had for some reason way too many. The first book that I read was Predator Cold War by Nathan Archer. So this is a sci-fi, I guess, a sci-fi horror, I don't know. It's from 1997. I had this novel on my shelf for a while, and it was a long time since I read the previous iteration, which is Concrete Jungle, which I also own. So I figured this would be an easy, quick read. It totally was an easy, quick read. What's it about? Well, if you can imagine, predators, from the movie Predator, because of the picture, what they are. Anyway, they crash land in Siberia. So these people go check it out, there's death and stuff. A character from this previous novel, Schaefer, who is Duke's brother, Duke from the original Predator movie. It's so dumb. Is one of the main characters, as is a Russian soldier. Now, let me say, I've mentioned this before on this channel, but I love the Predator movies. I adore them, and I love Alien vs. Predator. I love all of that stuff. So this book is definitely one of these books that I read because I am such a fan. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot that was great about this novel. Given my love of alien cultures, predators are an alien, obviously, my favorite Predator books and movies are ones where they delve into their culture, or at least give us some kind of a glimpse into it. The Aliens vs. Predators book did this, the ones that I'm obsessed with. Where are they? Oh, yeah. Like this. Good God. Getting all flustered over Predator. This one, for example, gives us a bit more of it, as did the movies, but this novel barely has any predators in it at all. Like, seriously, the book is 80% other people and 20% maybe the actual alien hunters. So I was like, fine. So it takes place like half a year after Concrete Jungle, which, looking back at my old review of that book, I gave 4 stars to. Like, was I drunk? Like, maybe it was really fun. I do remember it being entertaining, but I can't imagine why I gave it 4 stars. Like, I'm really shocked by that. Like, I'm not going to go back and read it anytime soon, though. But anyway, whatever. Maybe it was fantastic. I just don't remember. Anyway, so actually about this novel, there's a lot of filler in this novel. Honestly, it felt like the author had started crafting a Predator novel set in Siberia starring this really cool Russian woman, but then was told it had to fit with Concrete Jungle and Schaefer had to be part of it. And then rather than rewrite most of it, I suppose, I'm guessing this is what happened because the story, pivots so fast, it might as well be a ballerina and swan, like, Russian reference, I'm so funny. Most of the middle of the book is, it's far from interesting, to be honest, and I'll admit, any chapter with this character called Rash, I pretty much skip, because you can tell from the get-go what his purpose in the story is, so I don't know why he even needed any book time. The novel tried way too hard also to be like politically relevant, forgetting that it was just like a crappy Predator novel. Like, I don't even know what it was trying to say. The climax is utterly disappointing. And the extra military characters are tedious stereotypes. You know, they're trying so hard to push their big dick energy all over the place. And the result is just this kind of bolus of boring bullshit. Now, I will say, while there weren't nearly as enough women in the novel as I like, I did like that there was a female drug boss at one point, and I like how the female character, Ligacheva, didn't get pushed out of the novel when Schaefer showed up. And it's the opposite, in fact, the complete opposite, which absolutely surprised me. I honestly expected her to need him to save her, like, at least more than once, and I figured she'd give an assist in the final fight, but not really be involved. I was pleasantly surprised at how much this novel bucked those stereotypes, so bravo on that. Predator Cold War, a feminist text. Is this book worth the read? Not really. Even for huge Predator fans like me, I mean, I'm giving it a 2 out of 5 stars. Like, that's how much I dislike this book. Am I going to read more Predator books? Of course. If I could get a hold of Jeff Vandermeer's Predator South China Sea, somehow I will 100% read that. Like, does anyone have it? Will you lend it to me? I will pay for the shipping. I will send it back to you, too. The others, though, you know, I've looked on Goodreads reviews of some of them. I think I will try Flesh and Blood, and I'll try Turnabout. The latter because Steve Perry wrote it. Who wrote this one? But the others, I think I'll pass on. I've already read most of the AVP series. Like, there's the new one. I've got the third one. I don't know where the heck it went, but I've got these new ones. I read them a couple of years ago. How does one become a writer of Predator novels? Like, I've written enough fan fiction about Predators, embarrassing fact about me. I'm probably qualified. Anyway, that would be like a dream for me to write like Predator novels. Okay, what was the next book that I read? I read The Bone Way by Holly J. Underwood, which was a fantasy novella. It came out this year. Actually, I think it came out this month in June, or last month. You can check out my review of it in my single book reviews feed. It was pretty good. It was just a little... Novellas sometimes, though, are troublesome because they don't provide enough. They don't provide enough. Anyway, the next book I read was called Ark of the Apocalypse by Tobin Marks, which is a sci-fi apocalypse novel. I got this book as an ebook from the author in exchange for fair review, and I really enjoyed it. You know, this is one of those rare situations, though, where the cover belies not only the premise of the novel, but the writer's skill. In truth, I'm going to say the cover looks like a Game of Thrones fantasy ripoff due to the blonde with the dragon. I'm sorry. That's what it looks like. It's not. It's really not. I was actually quite blown away by the novel. It's a mix of kind of build up to apocalypse speculation, colonization of a new world, and this kind of hint of first contact. It's told in this vignette style lead up to the world ending and these colonists kind of heading out towards the colony planet, so like a mix of these kind of things. It's more complex than that, but it's really hard to describe kind of what it's about because it has so many layers to it. What's the most compelling about it is the writing style. Like, Marks has this easy yet kind of complex prose that is concise and it flows nicely. You know, despite writing about a variety of topics from military technology, you know, to scientific concepts, to ecological concerns, things like that, I was never kind of confused or overwhelmed by the story. The novel flows in this, as I said, like kind of vignette style, though it gradually begins to focus on a few key characters near the end. This helped the conflict feel universal, actually, and the fight scenes are really visceral and exciting. I also enjoyed how aspects that seemed like they were drifting into fantasy or magic were in fact rooted in a science-based premise. That was actually surprising to me. In terms of plot, I really enjoyed the build-up. But I wish the novel didn't rely so much on this kind of predeterministic view of time. Like, prescience is not my favorite concept, and certain choices in the novel felt like they could have been easily avoided, except for the one person was like, no, it's determined, it will happen, you know, just accept it. I'm like, no, fate is what you make, to quote Sarah Connor. I also wish there was more focus on rebuilding civilization than adhering to this vision of the future that is kind of set in stone. So I kind of wish there would have been more about that kind of aspect, like the world building or the colonization part of it. The novel does take like a really interesting turn halfway through that I wasn't expecting, and I really liked that aspect. Like, all of a sudden it just switched and I was like, oh, this is interesting. In terms of characters, though, this is where the novel wasn't that engaging for me. As I said, I like the vignette style, but sometimes it's hard to get to know the characters when it's kind of so many little bits and pieces of everybody here and there. You know, while the author was able to create these discernible, interesting people to watch from a distance, we don't really get to see inside their heads kind of at all. So the story spends a lot of time on this woman named Nadia, but I felt like I didn't really know her at all. And while I really liked the gender diversity in the book, you know, there's female presidents of the United States and other presidents and scientists and soldiers, as would be the case in the future and as are now, there wasn't any LGBTQ representation. Granted, some of the characters could have been, but we don't learn enough about them to know. This didn't affect my rating, it's just a note. You know, set in the future, I would expect at least one person to be gay. Similarly, plasma and pulse rifles are not the same thing, so the words shouldn't be used interchangeably. If that bothers you, don't read this. But I mean, it's very minor. That's a very minor thing. Overall, though, Ark of the Apocalypse, it's engaging. It's at times kind of wild ride that will appeal to, I'd say, a whole swath of sci-fi readers, and I highly recommend it to anybody that enjoyed Seven Eves and World War Z. So, good mix there. I'm giving it 4 to 5 stars, and thanks again to the author for asking me to read it. The next book I read was The Winds of Limbo, which you can find in my classic science fiction feed. I talk about the fire clown. I'm going to show it again because it's still terrifying. The next book I read was Wool by Hugh Howey, which is a sci-fi post-apocalyptic book from, I think it's like 10 years ago. I don't know how I had not read this already. Given how much I love post-apocalyptic stuff, I don't know how that one just kind of slipped under my radar. I'd heard of it, but I don't think I knew, I didn't know it was post-apocalyptic, so I thought it was like a horror story or something. Anyway, I'm reading all of them for a book club. We're doing one a month, so I'm going to review them as a trilogy when I'm done in August. The review will probably be in September. But I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 5 of 5 stars. I really liked it. The next book I read was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This is a fiction. I think it came out in 2020. So it was one of those Goodreads Choice Award ones, I think. Anyway, I listened to it on Audible. The narration was fine. Carey Mulligan did a good job with what she was given. So, given that tone, clearly, I wasn't super into this book. I will say one thing before I explain my rating. I can understand why people like this book. It's definitely a story of hope and learning to value not only yourself, but what you have, which is what I can see as people finding uplifting. I'm not saying it's a bad book, that's poorly written or anything like that. It just was not for me on many levels. So what is it? The story follows this woman named Nora who is kind of down in the dumps about her life. She's feeling useless and depressed and she tries to commit suicide, trigger warning. Instead, she wakes up in this place called the Midnight Library, which is this kind of limbo land. It's kind of limbo, I guess, actually, which offers her the chance to choose another life from all the infinite possibilities out there. Which one will she choose? I guess my biggest issue with this book is that it felt like a self-help book in fiction form. I'm not super fond of self-help because I'm arrogant and I don't think I need it. It's kind of like, it follows the kind of structure of like It's a Wonderful Life, like the last half of that movie or quarter of that movie, whatever, but without the kind of Christmas part of it and without the whole, what do you mean the bank is out of money scene, which is, yeah, I'm a sublime actress. I'm so good at acting. I had actually done an entire review where I talked about what I didn't like about this book, but upon reflection, it felt rather rude, so I'm not going to post it. I'll just say my issues with it lay with a painfully obvious plot and ending, my dislike of the main character Nora, whom I found irritating at best, and some aspects to deal with how the parallel world worked. One thing I did enjoy was when a character called himself a slider, which I'm assuming is in reference to the TV show Sliders, which is basically the same idea but slightly different context. That's a great 90s TV show. I should have just watched that instead of reading this book. Overall, I think if you're in a bad place and you need to pick me up, this book might work for you. But for me, it was didactic and rather dull, and I skipped through the main climax because it was boring. So yeah, that's yeah. If you liked this book, that is totally cool. I can understand why people like it. Yeah, it wasn't for me. I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars, and I recommend it to nobody. I also read Nophek Gloss by Essa Hansen. You can find this in my single book reviews list, and I really liked this one. I still have to go back to the library. It's probably late now. I also read one more book, and that was The Forever King by Ben Galley. I'll be dropping that review next week. I'm a bit busy this week with my cover reveal thing and a bunch of other stuff. So next week I will be doing that review. For the rest of the month, I'm going to be reading Binti, so I'm going to be doing a review of that. I've had it since January, I think, but I've been waiting as a book club. I'm part of is doing it. I'm going to read another Space Captain Smith book for my birthday. I'm going to read Wool Part 2, whatever that one's called. I've got a couple other NetGalley arcs that I have as well. And yeah, next month I've got 3 NetGalley arcs, and some of them are pretty cool, so I'm excited for that. So anyway, let me know if you've read any of these, if you like them or whatever. And yeah, thanks.